All right, well, hello, good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, the Premier League trophy. Thank you very much. First off, my name is John Weinerth. I'm with my colleague Andy Elker with NBC Sports Next. I want to thank Kate, Robbie, Miriam, the rest of the Premier League team for setting this up. If you get nothing out of this discussion or talk today, you got to hang out with the Premier League trophy for 20 minutes, so it's worth something. But we're certainly excited to talk about what the landscape looks like. I think myself, including probably everyone in this room, right, we've had a unique opportunity to view this through a number of lenses, whether that's player, as a parent, as a fan, a spectator, an administrator. Professionally, I've been very fortunate to see it from a number of different vantage points. Whether that was a sports marketing agency, we did the NFL punt, pass, and kick activation. We created Diamond Skills, which then became Pitch, Hit, and Run for Major League Baseball. Spent a number of years running indoor soccer, inline hockey facilities throughout the Midwest. So essentially, we were selling times and league play, along with 10 years as the CEO of one of the youth soccer state associations for Southern California, with a lot of powerful youth club brands really marketing themselves well. And you could really see where all of this has been heading over the last 20 years. And then this role currently, we get to spend it in the cross-section of sports and technology. So it's been an exciting time. There's been a lot of investment that has come into youth sports in the US, certainly over the last 20 years. I would say the next 3 to 5 years are going to dwarf that, specifically in the next couple years in terms of investment. So we'll kind of jump right in here. So where are we headed over the next 20 minutes? We'll try and keep it pretty high level, really size of the market, state of the market, what were some of the impacts we saw coming out of COVID, where we fit, and where we think it's really headed at some very kind of high level overarching points. So with that, I'll introduce my colleague, Andy Elker, who's similarly player. He's still a coach. He actually coaches high school football to this day, youth sports parent, and has been along for the ride of 8 years in sports technology, really working with our biggest and most important enterprise partners. So I love this particular slide for a couple reasons. One, I have hair. Man, do I miss it. That ginger swirl of a helmet I got working, it's almost like a Lego piece. But number two, we're both smiling, right? And it's a good reminder of big business, the benefit of working in youth sport, but really the North Star is, are the kids having a good time, is the ultimate barometer of that. And then third, just looking at the photo, you could see the evolution of sport right then and there. Unfortunately, Andy's photo was like 3 years ago. But mine circa 1980, right? The logoless kit, made of God knows what material, the black and white simple soccer ball, and then, by God, just look at the size of Andy's shoulder pads. I don't know who he was tackling, but like I don't think they're that big anymore. So it's all evolved. We're happy to grab a beer later and talk about, you know, is the youth sport of experience of today better than it was when we played as kids, or what specialization is doing in the pay-to-play model. We're going to keep it fairly high level in terms of kind of what the market looks like, and we can debate that certainly at a later time here. So when you look at the market, key drivers, if you're not familiar with American youth sports, obviously it's very much a pay-to-play model. Most kids are specializing in an individual sport. There's a few governing bodies, such as USA Hockey, who have advocated, you know, that it's important for your development to play different sports as a youth. Not too many governing bodies have come out with that. But when you roll it all up, you know, I think National Institutes of Health has it as 60 million annual registrants in youth sports across team sports as well as individual sports. Through our own research, we kind of more conservatively put that at about 55 million. From a dollar size of the market there, right now we have that sitting at about 20 billion. From 2010 to today, that's grown by over 55%, according to Wintergreen and some other research that's accessible out in the market. In 2017, it was about 15.2 billion. 2019, it was 19.2. Obviously, we had the pandemic that we're still rebounding out of. So we put that right around at the 20 million mark. And one research organization has this going as a 4x growth by the time we hit 2026 at $77.6 billion market. So we do think there's some exponential growth. Obviously, you've got the 2026 World Cup, potential of maybe hosting the Women's World Cup in 2027, followed by the LA Olympic Games. So the investment's going to continue. The growth is going to be exponential. When you look at it from a U.S. Soccer Federation perspective, and I'll caution myself as I look out at Paul in the audience, who probably knows this better than I, they hover right around 3 million registered, 3 million youth registrations. So you've got 2 million, give or take, coming from U.S. youth soccer in the 54 state associations, U.S. club soccer, who's had some good growth coming out of the pandemic as well, at about 600,000, give or take. And then the rest coming through AYSO, Say Soccer, USSSA. So if you love acronyms, American Youth Sports is the place for you, believe me. From a club perspective, from our data, we show that, you know, if it's 10 teams or more, we think there's about 7,500 soccer clubs that would fit that kind of 10 teams or more. That's likely debatable depending on different research out in the market. Average spend for a parent based on the Project Play and Aspen Institute, it's about $693 per player. We see that skewing a bit higher in the sports of certainly soccer, hockey, as well as volleyball. It's typically a little bit higher spend, at least from what we see coming through the pipe here. So if we pivot to state of the market, kind of where it's at, what are some of the key drivers, what were some of the things from COVID impact? We throw out 2020, that entire data set doesn't count. I mean, all we were doing was working with organizations to help them provide refunds to their families. But by and large, our 2021 numbers reflect a pretty strong bounce back in a core team sports. And what core team sports in our world, it's soccer, volleyball, hockey, baseball, softball, football, and lacrosse are essentially the 7. So we're not out of the woods. The recreational part of the game certainly took the biggest hit and is going to be a harder climb, but we do think that the rebound has been, not only reflects pent-up demand, but has actually eclipsed our last full data set, which we consider in 2019. The other thing is, fragmentation is certainly a thing within U.S. youth sports. Soccer takes it to another level. And you know, obviously with U.S. soccer pulling out of the development academy, it made for interesting times early in the pandemic because it was like an alphabet soup of new leagues, not only MLS Next, but the Girls Development Academy, the ECNL doubling down on the boys' side. And there was a lot of positioning, and it seemed like every day you were waking up to a new press release. So as much as we thought and hoped that some of the fragmentation over time would sort itself out, it's probably gotten a little further along more than anything. The biggest blow, volunteerism, right? As a country, it's kind of a dying breed. People's commodity is time, and they don't have enough of it. So it's fewer and fewer people are putting their hand up to volunteer to coach, to referee, to run youth sport. So that was already on a decline. The pandemic certainly just provided an accelerator in a lot of respects there. The next piece, technology and data. Those that had paid staff, those that had a good grasp on their technology stack, their data, ways to engage their families, were able to push the pain out a lot further, right? From families saying, why do I continue this monthly payment of club dues? They were able to get them engaged. They were able to pivot to virtual training, content that could be consumed by their athletes and families, whereas those that couldn't, it was a much, much more painful experience. And then the next one is acceleration. While it was a quiet time, no one was playing youth sports for a good 18 months. There was a lot of activity within the PE space, whether that's Susquehanna with their investment in Soccer Shots and their growth of the franchise model. RoArc made some investments in youth enrichment brands, along with many others. So we think that's a little bit of a leading indicator of what's to come in terms of future consolidation. And the last point, state of the market, is that things continue to shift what we call more hyper-local. You know, the decisions at the club level, less influence from the governing bodies to an extent, and like authority influence continues to shift to the club, to the league, what they know, where they go locally, and those groups making business decisions that are in the best interest of that organization. So I'm going to turn it over to Andy just to talk a little bit about where we fit in, where some of our data and demographics, some insights that we can share out with you.
Awesome, thanks, John. First, if I stand up, I apologize. John mentioned I'm a high school coach. I'm usually standing on my feet, running around, walking around. John, I'll do my best not to swing my left arm over this way. So in the back of my mind, that's all my wife is telling me right now. So who we are, right? NBC Sports Next. Obviously, you can see within the slide that's on the screen, NBC Universal falling underneath Comcast with NBC Sports underneath that. We're a subsidiary of NBC Sports. So what has occurred is within NBC Sports Next, kind of the digital and consumer brands and products that were under NBC has now fallen into what has now been branded NBC Sports Next. What it's allowed us to do, though, is not only work better cross-functionally and provide better insight for marketing and product, really to innovate for the youth sports market, but ultimately it's allowed better opportunities and alignment with the partners that we represent. There's, you know, John mentioned the core sports that we represent. There's a few that are on the screen here, with whether it's the Olympics being a large piece, whether it's golf, whether it's football, volleyball, or ultimately, and most importantly, why we're here today, with the Premier League as well. And really just allowed us to collaborate across functionally, working in partnership with those organizations and those sports to provide the most value as possible. What the actual placemat and the brands look like within NBC Sports Next, you know, there's really three core pieces. There's betting and gaming. On the fantasy side that falls into betting and gaming, some of you might have been familiar in the past with Roto World, which is now NBC Edge. On the golf side, it's actually quite interesting. So I don't know how many of avid golfers we have in the audience here today, but at some point, somebody, if you're an avid golfer, has used Golf Now, probably to book tee times. Golf, historically, what we've seen is already went through this consolidation into the market, not only on the technology side of things, but maybe most importantly also within the golf courses themselves, kind of being rolled up into larger organizations. The golf side, Golf Now, now represents over 90% of all online tee times that are booked in the country. Also taking the first venture, as you see, with Golf Pass. So with Golf Pass, most recently with the partnership with Rory McIlroy, being able to really provide value through the, you know, whether it's the video on demand, the subscriptions. There are over 200,000 subscriptions annually now in the country. So really been great to be able to focus and have conversations with a team that's already went through what we're seeing in the rest of kind of the ball and stick sports in the country. And then lastly, the side that I represent, the youth and recreational sports side of things. So continued focus with our safety business and our risk management and NCSI, continued focus on the competition side of things, whether it's with AES, the volleyball side of the business that we represent within the competition space, also within Tourney Machine, which has a priority focus with, you know, really the customer experience through their mobile application for tournaments, events, for those ball and stick sports, including soccer. Go Motion and Team Unify. What we really see is this growth, especially over the course of the last several years, of programming for lessons and class-based tools, and really a need not only from facilities, but honestly, I think most importantly with the amount of franchises that are coming into this space, the need for them to be able to provide a tool for their local franchises to be able to run their programming. And it's really, it's been an accelerant this last year and this last 2 years, just the amount of franchises we've seen come into the space and the needs that they have, really kind of catching up to the rest of the market that we've seen the last 5 years in just traditional youth sport organizations. And the last two here, Sports Sign Up Play and SportsEngine as well. So really representing over 35% of the soccer market under SportsEngine. This has been a consolidation of several different platforms from League Athletics to SI Play and the traditional SportsEngine. Not going to take too much time and go through the stats that are on here. Everybody can kind of see what's on there. The two that I want to point out is, when John talks about who we represent, we're talking about the 45,000 organizations across sports, as well as the over $2 billion that we process on an annual basis. To me, those two stand out because it's a large responsibility that we have, right? Not only from a security standpoint, but also just from a responsibility to the sport itself. We represent a large share of the market, and we want to make sure that we always provide a customer experience that matches kind of the dream and the goals that those parents do have. Who we are, so just a quick glimpse into kind of the demographics that we represent. Average age 36 to 55. Number of children, 2. I can speak directly. That's how many I have in my family myself. 75% are college level educated or above. John mentioned something earlier about just the amount of time to volunteer as well. We see it skewing largely on working mothers as well. And I think just as far as the amount of time that we have, I think a big piece has gone into not only the amount of time that people have, or maybe the lack of time that they have nowadays, but also what I would say is what they're asking for. And because of the limited time that they have, what we hear is that they're asking for a better experience. They're asking for things to be streamlined. They're asking things, quite honestly, to be simple. They want things delivered to them. They want it directly to them. And if you go back up to the 36 to 55, what I think is also occurring is we have a transition in the marketplace right now where we do have younger parents that are coming in that grew up with technology, that expect things just done differently and delivered differently and a better experience. The last piece on here, the 125,000, 150,000 annual income, not to kind of take it on a negative tone, but I think what that shows is that there's a part of the market that's not being represented. I think there's a part of the market that's being kind of forgotten, and I think there is a responsibility of everybody that's here today and everybody that's just in the space to make sure that that space isn't forgotten. When we talk about those urban areas, that we are providing the same value and the same benefits to those areas to ensure that all kids have a chance to be able to participate in sport. So this looks like a mess, and it's supposed to look like a mess because this is the current state of not only what a parent goes through on a daily basis, but what an administrator right now is going through and the troubles that they're going through. So, you look at whether it's as an admin, are all my coaches eligible to be able to play? Did they take their safe sport compliance? Did they take their background screen? Have they done their waivers? Have they done what's needed through their governing body? Where are the kids scheduled correctly in their competition? Are the hotels scheduled? You go through and you see, okay, how do I use the digital platform I'm using? Do I have the right mobile application? Is it MAP compliant as well to ensure that the security is being taken care of? I've listed, I think, 8 to 10 right there that administrators thinking on a daily basis that they now have to be able to track. That doesn't even get into what the parent has to think and what they have to go through, let alone should I trust my kids with the people that I'm sending my kids off to and putting them on the pitch with. So there's just more that's being put on these parents to ask, and more for them to be able to do, and more for them to be able to travel, as well as more for these administrators and these owners to be able to check the boxes to ensure they're doing right by the people that they represent. So that's the mess that we live in kind of today. I think that's more the historical mess. Because of the scope and the size and the scale of the conversations that we have, we do see trends changing though, and the trend that we see is very much for a direct model. And that direct model is not only for the experience that the parent needs to be able to have, and a positive one at that, but also just a direct model for the administrator and what the administrator or the owner or the franchise owner or whoever's running the organization that they need. So that looks more from a data and technology standpoint. So what they are asking for and what we're hearing is they want a direct model. They want to make sure that their data and their user profile is working under one single sign-on. Think about, I went and any app you sign up for right now, you're instantly connected through something you've already done, right? It's a simple process for them to pick up. They don't want to go through 6 different platforms and 6 different usernames and accounts just to be able to get Johnny or Joey on the field to be able to participate. So it's really a model where they can put the participant first and the customer experience first, and consolidate the payments and the mobile application and the memberships that they have to sign up for and how they're doing that through the registration, which ultimately leads into a better experience of allowing the administrator to roster and ensure that the right person's where they need to be, have a better experience at the events that they participate in, and then for a lot of people in this room, what does that look like then to be able to promote and provide visibility? And when I say promote and provide visibility, I'm talking about sponsorships for the organization, right? How do I take all of that data? How do I make sure that that data is clean? How do I utilize then that to be able to grow my organization? On the other side, as a parent, or as a coach or whoever it may be, how do I take that data? How do I ensure that I'm doing everything possible to promote the asset that's the child, right? And make sure that they're being seen through streaming, through video, and maximizing the monetization for the child themselves. So you can see it's kind of, it's 2 sides, right? It's all about the customer experience, and it just depends on who the customer is. Is it the customer that's the parent, or is it the customer that's the administrator, right? Ultimately, all together, it's just providing a single experience under one roof for that person that has the responsibility to be able to provide the best value for the end user.
All right, thanks, Andy. So where's it headed? Just some kind of overarching themes. I think any business, youth organization that has experienced some scale at some level, businesses like ours have typically been a B2B focus, and now it's going to be not B2B, but B2B and B2C focus. So how are we providing, to Andy's point, a unified experience all the way down to the parent level, their extended family, and not jumping from one application to another? The next significant shift will be recreational sports, community-based programs are gonna continue to struggle, and they're gonna get eaten up by these franchise, class-based sports programs. It's already happening. Volunteerism is gonna be hard to kind of rejuvenate. So I think that segment of the game, not only in soccer, but across all our core team sports, that U6 learned to play all the way down to 3 years old. None of us may like it, but that's the reality, right? That under 8 and below is going to largely be gobbled up to a certain extent by for-profit driven franchise and class-based. Video on demand and streaming going to be critically important, right? Short form content, bite-sized content, whether that's from a recruiting standpoint and the promotion of athletes and following their college dream, or just the ability for mom, dad, aunt, and uncle to view their kids' experience. And with the AI of the new cameras coming out, like, boom, 90 seconds, you can have every time Andy touched the ball on the pitch, like through your social media feeds, through any colleges you're interested in. So that's gonna be really, really critical as a next step that I think most larger youth sports organizations and facilities will be pursuing. Technology and data, we won't beat that drum anymore, right? Data, BI tools where you can really get into analytics of how many programs are athletes participating in, what are they returning, why didn't they sign up for this program, how we can tweak the experience to draw out more participation throughout the year. Name, image, likeness, somewhat tied to video on demand, and we won't get into NFTs and where that fits in, but you already see it coming out through the media, right? Who's that next 12-year-old star that has some kind of big name, image, likeness, deal? Is that the data of the sports organization, the individual, the technology platform? That's all gonna get really muddy really, really quick, but it's coming and we should all be preparing for that. The next one, heavy PE consolidation. I think, It was surprising, but not surprising, when no one was playing youth sports, how much investment came in. I think the next 18 months is going to be lights out quick. And there's going to be heavy roll-ups. You can see it today, whether it's event providers, actual youth clubs that are being rebranded. And then lastly, professional leagues and teams investment. I mean, look no further than the folks that are here, listening to this talk, the academies that are already here, whether that's MLS, USL, Barcelona, Borussia Dortmund, you name it. More and more are going to put flags in the ground. And at some point, what was just that local community youth club, they are all going to have some connective tissue to for-profit, private equity-based business portfolio, or a professional team, league, in some variation. Over time, there's going to be very few that stand alone. Whether that's good or bad, I think time will tell, quite honestly. So in closing, the youth sports experience for your kids, for our kids, my son Henry, Andy's daughters, Leah and Marley, it's going to look different, right, than what we experienced. And it's going to look very different for their kids. But whatever version of youth sports they're participating in, hopefully the smiles remain the same. Thank you very much. And we're happy to take any questions if there's any in the audience.
So my name is Jordan. I'm from Salt Lake City. But growing up, like I said, American sports is typically paid to play. So how can you still make a profit while making it affordable for kids that can't, or don't have the resources to actually, pay to play?
Yeah, great question. Quite honestly, the haves have to do more. You've got organizations like U.S. Soccer Foundation, their mini pitch program. I think they're going on over 100 installs. The ability to convert unused tennis courts. The USTA wouldn't like us saying this, but those are sitting empty in urban areas, right? It's already, the infrastructure's there. It's chopping out the poles, putting in lights if they don't have them. And so everyone plays a part in it to make it more affordable. It's become big business. We're kind of putting some flashy numbers and things up in lights, but I think quite honestly, those that are invested have to do more to get into those communities, subsidizing programs, sending in coaches to do camps and clinics. I think you'll see big groups like Premier League and others stepping up in ways we haven't seen before, but I think it's going to come down to that, and eventually, the clubs that are sitting out in the nice, shiny, big suburbs of Irvine, South Bay, wherever, have got to make it part of their mission to reach in and influence the game in those communities. Add all that up, I think that's hopefully going to make the biggest difference.
All right. Well, I appreciate it.
Oh, we got one here. Diego's got a question.
Last one here.
Diego Bocanegra here. Sorry. Yeah, John, obviously I've seen you and your path and how it's gone from your Cal South days and here. What do you see your biggest role in technology, in kind of piggybacking on that question, in helping some of the have-nots? Obviously, technology is a lot more accessible with everybody's got a phone. Everybody takes that with you. And within SportsEngine and your platforms, how do you see technology, like I said, being able to help the masses, not just the haves?
Yeah, thanks for that, Diego. I mean, quite honestly, technology should take away all the administrative time that those people focus on processes and paperwork so that they can focus on the programs and providing a great experience. If our tech, if your technology, anyone else in this room can do that and put all the energy into the programs that kids are playing in, I mean, that's really technology's purpose, is to streamline all of that. Because there's a lot of time lost there, right? And at the end of the day, it's programming that wins the day in a positive experience. So that's where I think technology can play the biggest role.
I think you can package programming for people as well. John mentioned putting things together of some of these organizations, Premier League, others getting into the space and really providing that programming. Technology can kind of create that box, right? That simple experience that the program's delivered through, so that it's coming from experts within the space that show you how you can achieve the goals that you're looking to. So not only be able to make things simple and easy for you, but be able to deliver the actual package itself too.
Cool. All right. Thank you very much.